serious question for you, Bob. Is your computer a pull start or a push start? I'm just wondering.
Wow, that's why you were in such a hurry.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know if we've talked about this much, but I have little problems getting the show set up started in a timely fashion. My computer just decides that it doesn't like my audio gear every once in a while. Today was one of those days.
I just had to give you some crap because, yes, like every time, Bob's like, hey, I'm going to start the ritual of starting up my computer, and it's like, what happened? What's going on over there? Did it run out of gas or what's going on?
It just decides that it doesn't want to do what I want it to do sometimes.
I guess.
It's a lovely machine, but whatever.
Next quick question for you. Bob, did you take psychology in college?
I did not.
What?
But I play a psychologist on television.
You didn't have to? It wasn't like one of those freshman snooze through classes?
Maybe I did, and maybe I snoozed through it. If it was one of those 400-person lecture hall like psychology 101s.
Yes. So,
and since you and I both have children, we've taken the 500 level course of that. So
thank you for saying that, because I was going to say we're going to talk a lot about psychology and mental health today, and neither one of us graduated as a psychology major, but we have degrees in psychology in the School of Hard Knocks, and potentially, I know I took a psychology 101 in college. So does that make me technically college educated in psychology?
If you're a host of a podcast, then yes, you're totally qualified to cover this.
That's kind of what I'm getting at here. We are definitely probably out of our league here, but we're just going to power through this topic anyway, right?
Yep. I think we should just change the name of the show to Two White Dudes Talking About Shit we have no reason to talk about.
Just winging it.
Just winging it. The new pod. You are listening to the Bob and Kevin Show with Bob Beattybar
and Kevin Giescheski. Each week we cover relevant tech and social issues related to technology.
Our website is bobandkevin.show.
And our episodes can be found virtually on any podcast network.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Just search for Bob and Kevin Show.
So, to set the stage for today, the genesis of today's pod actually came out of talking to a school teacher in December. So, a few months ago.
You didn't give me all this background ahead of time. This is interesting. Okay.
And I had tried, she asked me, hey, I heard you do a podcast. Why, yes. Yes, I do with my friend Bob. Oh.
No, that didn't really happen,
yes,
did it?
Yes, it did.
Ooh, nice.
And I said, well, it's on technology. And first and foremost, it's not safe for work. You're a school teacher. Don't listen to it at work. Okay, disclaimer right there. And then we start talking about how technology has kind of influenced, our children, our current children's generation, even, just the last 20 years of children, going all the way back to year 2000, maybe even a little before that.
Can I ask a question about this particular teacher?
Yes.
Does this teacher have technology in the classroom? Is it a one-to-one classroom?
I don't know. She is, and I don't want to mention her name, but she is actually a teacher in Colorado.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I can give you an idea for my kids who are presently in school. They each have a Chromebook, and they can bring it home, and they all...
So your kids are in a one-to-one tech environment?
Yes.
Every student has a device?
Yes, so every student has a device.
If we're mentioning credentials, even if I don't remember taking Psychology 101, I was a school board member when we lived in Illinois up until the last 6 months. So 6 months ago, I sat on school board and we talked about things like technology in the classroom and one-to-one device ratios and the impacts technology have on student mental health. So we might be better at this than we think.
We might be. So really, we got talking about technology, and I got the soapbox out, and I stood strongly 2 feet on it, and I said...
firmly in the center of the very high soapbox.
And I'm like, technology, it's definitely had its influence, and we got talking about how kids are kind of judged these days, not by the clothes that they wear necessarily. I mean, that's on the list, by the friends they keep. But the new status symbols of the 2010s, now 2020s, is what smartphone do you have and how many followers do you have on which particular social media account. So that's become like the new gold standard of status symbol for the youth. Have you?
And did you discuss this with the educator as well?
With the teacher. Yep. We were talking about this, and this really kind of like, you know what? This is a podcast right here, because I totally feel that this is, you know, what the mark of social media is making presently still. And it's definitely had its impact. And
well, it's not just students too. I mean, I think we're going to focus on that a little bit today, but I think you and I both have personal experience with how social media can influence from minute to minute or even longer term impacts of how social media works.
Exactly.
With our minds.
I've got a huge list of talking points, and I hope to not meander a ton, but we probably will.
That's our regular format, is meander.
And as I bootstrap this topic, we talk about how the number of followers you have doesn't equate to your self-worth. It shouldn't, but it does in a lot of ways. A lot of people do make that equation. It's like, well, I've only got 10 followers and so-and-so's got 10,000 followers. Clearly they're a better person. What am I doing wrong? Right? I mean,
or they're better at marketing.
Or they're better at marketing. But does a 13-year-old, 20-year-old, hey, I'm 41. Does a 41-year-old understand that? Well, probably better than the 13-year-old or whatever, right?
I don't know if I do, and I'm approaching.
I said
big
better.
5-0.
I didn't say perfectly. So I had made a comment to you the other day, and this is kind of a spicy one. Pornography. A lot of times people say pornography. Oh, that's not like reality. And I would humbly agree and go, you're right. There's just a lot not happening in the wild, like what's happening on this website or whatever. But I would also challenge that television, film, and magazines have been doing that since the dawn of time. The cover model who's photoshopped, the television show where it's the 40-year-old man with the 22-year-old, starlet, things like that, right?
Well, I think this isn't even very controversial to say, is that it's all pornography in some way, shape, or form.
Just different intensity, right?
Yeah, or just different genre. I mean, it's all. So if we take the sexual content out of pornography, and back to that quote that you share with me that it's pornography is not like real life. It is a hyper, I don't know what the word, it's like a magnified version of a fantasy in real life.
Right.
So that cover of the
over the top, right?
Yeah. So that cover of the magazine that is highly airbrushed and retouched, that's also a hyper fantastical view of what reality is. So, one's just in the realm of pure carnal sexuality, and the other one is, in an implication of, if you could be like this person on this still image of the cover of this magazine, you could project that person's happiness onto your life. And it's not real happiness anyway, but.
So in a way, if we were to go back 30 years, our parents may have the same reaction to television, film, and magazines as you and I probably have right now to social media, where it's like, well, all it is sex, drugs, and rock and roll on that darn television, film, and magazine. And that's kind of what's going on with social media-ish, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the actual, I would think that somehow you draw the parallel from the stories that you read in the newspaper, like how salacious or fantastical or about about celebrities, easy for me to say. So I try to figure out that parallel, Yes. And maybe it is the newspaper stories about other people, reading about other people.
It's the living through others,
vicariously.
There you go, vicariously. I was about to say voyeuristic, but that's probably different.
Well, actually, there's a voyeuristic aspect of this as well. So you want to be, you want your life to be more of like what you see in that person's Instagram feed, and you're basically being a voyeur. You feel like you're being a voyeur looking into some of those people's lives.
So now that we've kind of set the stage a little bit, we're going to talk about mental health in relation to social media, and not just with young people. We're talking in general, just what is its impact. And these days, the smartphone is ubiquitous. The first iPhone, 2007, 2010, in my opinion, when gas got thrown on the sales of smartphones, 4G, LTE. We talked about these kind of things in a previous episode. And so everyone, it feels like, I saw some numbers like in the 90s, has 90-some% of people, teens and above, have some sort of smart device that's connected. So we have kind of two flavors of social media users. We have passive users who are just reading. And when you start Twitter and know nothing about it, you sign up and you're a passive user. I don't know how to tweet. Okay, you're a passive user. And then
or you're afraid to tweet something out there for the fear of what happens after that.
Right.
That might be jumping ahead in the conversation.
And then
but yes, you're very much a lurker at that point.
And then afterwards, some people graduate to become an active user. And we're going to talk about how active users weaponize social media. And we'll cover that here in a little bit. So there's positives and negatives of social media, Bob. And I made a little list, and I thought we could go through some of these. But before I do, I have a question for you.
Oh boy, this is my favorite part. All right, what's the controversial?
It's not controversial. Do you just want to go with the positives or the negatives first? Choose your own adventure here.
I think that we should. Wow, it's like, how do we want to tell the story?
One's short and one's a long chapter. So there's your hint.
I think. All right, let's start. Even though this is going to make a sad ending, let's start. Let's start with the positives.
Okay. So the positives, and I can absolutely relate to this one. Small niche groups like marginalized teens. I'm not saying I was a marginalized teen, but people who are in small groups can band together and find support and friendship among each other. I
think the term is kinship. I think it's kinship.
Met you on social media. True story.
Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Is that true?
You're the creepy guy. I've told this story many times. You're the creepy guy who found out I was going to the same conference as you. You're like, hey, you're an American going to this European conference.
Oh,
hey, where are you
right.
staying? I'm like, creeper. What are you, a child molester? I don't even know who you are. I barely know what Twitter is at this point. You're already asking me where I'm staying?
Now, you have to remember, and you have to put this in context, though. I've been going to that conference for 3 or 4 years at that point. So I was definitely using social media for that kinship aspect.
And I was a virgin to social media back then, at least Twitter. And I'm like, seriously, I probably mentioned to my coworkers, hey, man, should we be going to this conference? There's a creeper right here. That was totally you.
Is that the one that you went to with Tom?
No, it was not. It was a 2013 conference in Copenhagen. So
yeah, so that was my third or fourth one.
There you go. So that's a good thing. You can meet people and start a podcast with somebody 4 years, however many years later, right?
A friendship that's almost spanned a decade, sure.
Right. So there's that. It's also a creative outlet, meaning, hey, look what I did. Hey, I made this cool thing. Here it is. And that's really something that the power of social media enables. Hey, I am nobody. I have no followers. I made this truly creative thing. Here it is. And then somebody can come along, retweet it, share it, whatever. And suddenly you have a viral tweet and you're doing tattoos on your face and you call yourself Post Malone and now you're famous.
So, but in the timeline of social media timelines, like, where did the creator, like, I feel like the creator aspect of it is a relatively late blooming thing. Like, somewhere along the line, it was glorified chat. Social media was glorified chat. Then somehow it became, I'm going to take a picture of every single piece of food that I eat for the next 365 days. And then that kind of like exploded into, I'm going to let people that I've never met in my entire life into almost every single moment of my life. But creator, I feel because came after that.
I remember in the early 2010s where the joke was, oh, you're on Twitter, so you take a picture of what you're having for lunch, and that was like the trope for a while. I don't know when it changed where it's is what it is today. But I think Twitter started like 2006 or 7. I don't know that Twitter people knew what Twitter was for either at that time.
Yeah, because it was just 140 characters and nobody knew what to do.
So one thing it has also done is it enables you to have a micro blog, and every tweet you do, while searchable, and I really would like to figure out how to search Twitter. Clearly somebody can search the president's old ones and be like, that aged well. I don't know how to do that, but what Twitter also
go to Google and say Twitter : and then whatever your search is.
All right, probably that simple. So I think it's become also a micro blogging platform, for better or for worse, because you know, once you say it, you basically have a news cycle of how long your tweet is getting bounced around like a ping pong ball, and then it goes into the annals of history at this point. You want to see what Bob said last week, search it.
Do you think that was so? I feel like you're saying that the microblogging platform is a positive, correct?
It can be, but it's also going to be a negative. So I guess it's a net neutral here.
Do you think that was prolific or an accurate case when Twitter was only 140 characters per tweet?
Okay, so we only switched to the double the amount of characters, in the last couple of years, 3 years, however many.
Yeah,
years?
I think it's been less than 2. I think it's been less than 3 for sure.
Maybe not. So I think that is one side effect of that, because the blog, I haven't blogged since 2017 because it's just not worth my effort to actually put together paragraphs anymore.
Right. And I want to put a pin in that one because I think that that's also going to contribute to some of the negative as well.
Yeah, totally.
Looks like 2017.
Okay, so about 2 and some change years ago. Right?
Yeah, because I don't think it started. So November 7th, 2017.
Okay.
So yeah, it's less than 3 years.
Okay, so we got the creative outlet, microblog, small niche groups, and then marketing. So you can use like Hootsuite and stuff like that and get a reach. You and I did an experiment with like $50 to try to market our Twitter handle, and that $50 was gone within seconds.
It's like going to Vegas. It was pointless.
Did not move the needle at all. And all I learned really was there's this hidden dashboard. Well, it's not really hidden. You just got to pay it and do it. But you can target people by all these creepy demographics, but not as creepy as Facebook's demographics. But it's just like really weird. It's like, wow, you know all this about all of your users, and this is uncomfortable. But I'm doing this in the name of science right here in podcasting, right? Right.
And I mean, brands have utilized those platforms even without paying, just to have that voice, the brand voice out in they can get followers without having to pay for them.
That's the real win, right? Because I don't know about you, but as soon as you can kind of see the promoted tweet as you scroll, and you're like, I see you. I'm just going to glaze over and go to the next thing. I actively try to not read or interact with a promoted one. Every now and then, though, I'll get the troll bug and be like, oh, let me troll this one because this one's just stupid. Yeah, I got to hit this one. And if you click on the replies, that's what everyone else does. It seems like on promoted tweets. We just troll them.
Well, and full disclosure, I've been tricked by promoted tweets too, like didn't catch the promoted banner or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting that person's saying that about this product.
So interesting you say that. Have you noticed Google recently? Before, you used to be able to spot the promoted results. Now you cannot spot them anymore.
That's been controversial. Yeah.
So for the lay user, what they've basically done is they took all things that didn't look like an ad, and now they all look like an ad. So you really can't tell which is which, that's their business model and all that. But,
well, they all look more like search results now is the problem.
Yeah, they're vanilla. Whatever it is, they're all vanilla. And that's fine. But it's also a kind of an underscore of, look, Google is giving you a very tailored result set. This may not be the best result set. So if you open up like a DuckDuckGo, which I've started using, it's definitely not as good in terms of all the little features that Google has. Like you can do like temperature conversion, you can do unit conversions, all right there on the Google page. Can't really do that stuff on DuckDuckGo, but it's just showing you how much money is actually involved in providing you air quotes information.
Oh, data's the new oil.
Data is the new oil. Okay. Before I move on to the negatives, do you have any positives to contribute that we haven't already covered?
Well, it's interesting because I think we are kind of taking a timeline approach to this, and we really haven't mentioned like Facebook so much as far as social media and influencing mental health. And we haven't really touched on Instagram either. It seems like it kind of did all start with that weird 140 character app. I mean, Facebook was already very prolific at that point.
So let's take a moment.
But what changed everything? Or was social media always bad for mental health?
I think we're becoming more aware of what social media really is. And I'm going to put a pin in that one too, because I definitely got a segment for that. So on the positives, there are some positives to Facebook. I know it sounds weird coming from me. One positive is...
Well, you should probably explain why it sounds weird coming from you.
Well, it sounds weird coming from me because I left Facebook in 2017 and happier for it. Blah,
2017?
Blah, blah. Yes, it was it coincided with us starting this show on YouTube.
Wow, did we start in 2017?
We did.
Wow, we're old.
End of 2017. Actually, it was right around the time
that Twitter went to 280.
Exactly. So I think we even covered that possibly back then. Anyway, so I left Facebook, and one positive before I left Facebook was you can find a group for anything. You know, there's the whatever.
In fact,
whatever
they're
group.
running television commercials about that exact fact lately.
I did see that commercial. Now, my wife's still on Facebook, and we're sending one of our kids to space camp. And sure enough, I think she found a, hey, are you going to space camp? Here's what you want to know group type thing. So I do view that as positive, but here's the huge negative for me. Most of those groups require a Facebook account. You know,
well, yeah, if they're on Facebook.
Right. Now, I think my church uses Facebook, and I think you can make it public. You just can't join the group, but you can read through like announcements and stuff like that publicly.
Can you actually read anything on Facebook without logging in?
You can. You can set things to public. So remember back, speaking of timeline, early 2012, 2013, they started flirting with having you can follow Bob on Facebook, and it really never took off. But they also had this, controversial things where, oops, we accidentally made that public and it was supposed to be private. All these people, all
right.
Your account. And so there is a way to make things public. So if you were to visit some people's profiles and they have public things, you can see their images and whatnot. A lot of times unbeknownst to them that it's public, because Facebook over time has accidentally, air quotes, made it default to public, and you had to manually go back in there and change it back to private.
But I still think that's public within the Facebook realm. Like, you can't go to their Facebook page without being logged into Facebook.
So if you do an incognito mode, or if you just log out of Facebook, you can definitely visit, I think, our church website.
Did not know that. All right. Very interesting. Learned something new today.
So that's my positive there. And Instagram, I will give it the old, well, it's kind of like the creative person thing. There's a lot of creative channels and whatnot, but I will talk about Instagram in a bit, about how bad it is.
Right. There's no real community building on Instagram, right? Well, I guess there kind of is.
You can do a hashtag and stories.
Yeah, Instagram's a weird one.
All right, so that's the positives for me with those three platforms. I mean, we can talk about YouTube as well, I guess. Actually, I will talk about you. Here's what I do like about YouTube. So I just uploaded 3 new videos recently, so I'm back on YouTube loosely. But I got back from Disney World. We drove, and my son's car had one of the fenders wheel wells resting on right front tire. Well, oops. We discovered his spring just snapped. So it must have been ready to go, temperature change, whatever. So he can't move his car.
I'm going to guess it folded more than it snapped.
No, I have pictures. It is in 2 pieces. And,
well, yeah, but I don't think it went bam.
Oh, gotcha. So I'm not a car guy. No, none of it. We're not a car guy family. We are nerd family, creative family. That's what kind of family we are. So what do? We call my brother-in-law, who is a mechanic, and he's like, oh, here's what you want to do. And he's like, okay. And you want to change it. I'm like, Yeah, right. So who do we call to tow this? We're just going down that. He's like, no. Go over here to the carport store. Here's what you ask for, and change it. And I'm like, dude, I can change tires, and I can't even change. I've never changed oil in my life. I can change tires. Okay. And by the end of the day, through the help of YouTube, we had both struts in the front of the car completely replaced on our own, and it was amazing.
So YouTube, great how-to resource, without a doubt.
And that right there makes me not want to punch YouTube in the face as much, but I do want to punch YouTube in the face often. So that's my positive on YouTube.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that one for sure. It's a great how-to resource. And I guess if you're looking for entertainment from content creators, that could possibly be a plus as well.
Yeah, I think the value of YouTube, honestly, is how to play guitar, how to make this better, how to do that. There are some like YouTube Red or whatever it is. It's their private label stuff. I really think that's a mistake for YouTube.
Well, they're just trying to become a cord cutting cable channel. So
yeah, I just don't see that happening. Netflix, Apple, all of them, Hulu. That's what they do. And it's like eBay trying to become Amazon. It's like, hey, we're eBay. We want to sell brand new things too. And we want to be just like Amazon. Yeah, we all see what you're trying to do there. Just stick to the auctions, guys. Just stick to the auctions. Amazon be Amazon. It's just like if Amazon were to start doing auctions, which maybe one day they would. But sometimes these companies just stay in their lane. Do what you do. And just stay in your lane. Okay. Ready to move on to the not so good of social media?
Yeah, because so you got building community, how to sharing art, potentially. Yeah, that's pretty much, those are the
marketing, just general.
Yeah, you could use it as a marketing tool,
yeah.
Sure.
All right. So the negative, and this list is quite extensive. So number one, social media. I've read a lot of stories. I'm just going to throw out random numbers. I'm sure you can back this up online if you want to do the searches. But social media increases the amount of anxiety and depression in people in general. And the ways that it happens is if we look at Instagram.
But not all people, right?
No.
It just has the potential to increase that in some people.
Right. But a significant amount of people are more likely triggered, if you will, because of social media to be depressed or anxious. And the way that manifests, first and foremost, would be fear of missing out, FOMO. Hey, look at so-and-so's feed, look at so-and-so's number of followers, look at so-and-so's whatever. I'm just sitting here at my house or wherever it is that I am currently existing, and the fun is not where I'm at. So there's that fear of missing out. Make sense?
It does, but this is one of those things that I have a really hard time wrapping my head around, because now I'm sure we're going to get into the bullying part of things, and that is kind of like obvious, but like this fear of missing out, it's funny because this is a you problem, not a we problem kind of thing.
Right.
And that sounds cold and weirdly applied, but it's like if you are having that fear of missing out, I don't come across many channels or even like influencers or any where you're made to feel badly.
That's correct. That's
not their aim.
Well, it's like those medicines on TV. Hey, this will cure whatever, but it will also probably kill you. Right. So it's like these unintended consequences here. So the one that I will challenge you with is fear of missing out, which I believe you've experienced, is watching a conference occur without you. Yes.
Now, I will 100% admit to that, but in the same breath, I will 100% admit that's on me.
Yes.
I wouldn't want the conference goers to, and this is also another interesting aspect, because there are people who believe that those people should stop sharing their positive experiences because it's making them feel bad.
That's exactly where I'm going with this. It's like, wait a second, you're upset that somebody else is having a good time? And the answer is yes, though most people would not admit that. They wouldn't go, well, yeah. They'd be like, no. But I think that's the reality of people trapped in their minds going, look, I'm not there. Oh, they're having so much fun without me. Those bastards. I just think that happens.
Right. And I'm not saying that impact isn't real. Where I struggle personally is how some people can't separate at that point. Like, I feel you've done a commendable job at realizing things aren't making you feel the way you want to feel and you disengage from them. But I feel like there's so many people who do not. Like, they're trapped in that cycle.
Yeah, full disclosure, there's people in this world that trigger me. And the only way for me to not get triggered is to recognize it and take away the trigger. For lack of a better term, take away the trigger. And I think we'll talk about mitigation later, like how do we avoid some of these things in a bit. So let's put a pin right there. So there's FOMO, unless you want to keep going.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, what is it about social media that makes it so difficult for us to disengage? Because it's not like you're getting the dopamine hit. You're getting a negative response. Like, why can't you break away from the negative response?
Okay. You brought up the word dopamine. So that's down my list here of negatives. So social media is addictive. And I found this really good article, and we'll include a link, and I'm going to read from some of it, but it's a dopamine connection. And I quote, "The desire for a hit of dopamine coupled with a failure to gain instant gratification may prompt users to perpetually refresh their social media feeds. What is dangerous about this compulsive use is if gratification is not experienced, users may internalize beliefs that this is due to being unpopular, unfunny. A lack of likes on status may cause negative self-reflection, prompting continual refreshing, etc., etc." So that
So it is a never-ending cycle.
Right. So it's beating yourself up. It's I don't live up, and it's this feedback loop of, starts with, let's be honest, getting a lot of likes and getting a lot of engagement, which is what we all want, gives us that dopamine hit. So I made a tongue-in-cheek comment that, hey, if the internet is actually should be on Schedule 1 instead of marijuana, because the internet crosses state lines. It gives us this drug called dopamine, and we're all addicted to it, and it has no medicinal use. So,
wow, that's a very interesting concept, though, because it probably is more dangerous than some of this, like marijuana being on Schedule 1.
Right, and of course I tweeted that as a tongue-in-cheek thing. I got like almost no actually I may got no interaction. And I'll tell you what, whenever, and I'll just be open book here, whenever you tweet something, you're like, this is funny. Oh yeah, this will be the one. This is the tweet. And you send it out and you get nothing. You're like, fuck my life. What is going on? And then somebody posts a picture of a cat and it's got like 1.6 million views of a cat saying hello in a southern voice. It's like, what is going on with me?
For me personally, I feel like I get what I put out there. So like, I'm not one to like, well, I guess I do give the heart or the like or whatever, I guess I'm pretty liberal with it, but I really don't expect much in return. But I think a lot of people don't engage within their echo chamber, but they still expect to get engagement back. I don't know. It's a very interesting concept.
I saw a tweet the other day and it said something to the effect of, if you are providing low quality, and I'm paraphrasing, low quality content, such as all you do is saying haha or a meme, you should get 3 strikes and then banned from Twitter. Did you see that one?
No, but I'm curious as to what their logic behind that was.
And I'm thinking, you know what? There's 2 lower grades of interaction. Number 1 is do nothing. Number 2 is hit your stupid heart button. And maybe number 3, hitting the retweet. That takes almost no effort. So me finding a meme or saying haha, at least I took the more steps. So that's technically more engagement. Anyway, it really bothers me when people kind of gatekeep on that sort of thing. You know what? I'll engage how I want to engage. Thank you.
Right. But I think that that's probably another topic coming up, is like how, because I think that statement is probably falls into one of those categories along virtue signaling or, authoritative, basically for lack of a better term, mansplaining how social media should be used.
Yes. For the record, it was a woman. But
right, I was using mansplaining as a generic,
No, Bob, what did you mean? Tell us.
Talking down to someone like you have an authoritative high horse. And
so there's also a lot of passive users who I know see tweets and don't do anything with it, because I'll have people at work be like, hey, saw that tweet. But I'm like, I know you didn't engage. I know you didn't like it. But it's funny because you kind of cock your head and go, oh, you kind of look around. You did see that one. Yeah. What'd you think? It's kind of like this. There's this group of people who are on Twitter or whatever, and they see it. It's like the silent majority, maybe. They see it, but they don't interact. And
I think I do that a lot.
Full disclosure, I swear your tweets do not make my timeline that often, and I want to know why.
Well, that's an algorithmic thing, and that's a whole different conversation. And yeah, but I see all yours, so that means I must engage with yours enough that I get to see them. I don't know. Yeah. I see all of yours, I think.
So,
but I would like to quickly loop back, though.
Yep.
I thought of another positive. I use social media as a supplement to other forms of entertainment.
Such as?
Primary example, last night during the debates, there's a Democratic debate last night. I use Twitter as a supplement, almost like
an outlet.
When you have, we have those broadcasts where like the Twitter stream is going along the bottom or something like that, like a ticker.
Oh yeah.
I use it hand in hand because I like to hear and see how others are reacting to the same content. So it's almost like being at a venue where there's open discussion about it, but it's silent discussion. I don't know, but I use social media a lot as a supplement or a complementary piece of content with another medium.
To piggyback on that for me, so we're both remote workers, and for me, it's an outlet. I work in a house with no people on a daily basis. So my
same.
My Twitter is my stream of conscience. It's sometimes my humor, trying to be funny. It's sometimes I just want to see what other people are saying, because I really enjoy like humorous tweets. And there's some people are like, oh my God, that's so funny. That's so true. And we'll get into tweet types later. But yeah, I can totally.
It's our water cooler.
Oh yeah, totally. Okay, you ready for the kind of the next thing? So we've just covered addictiveness and FOMO. Believe it or not, social media encourages eating disorders and body image concerns. And I give you Exhibit A, and I call it Instagram.
That's not a stretch. Yeah, that's not a stretch at all.
And this is where that parallel with magazines and movies and television come in, because you and I did a weight loss thing. That's another episode. See what I did there?
Nicely done.
Losing weight is hard, but it's not as hard as keeping it off. So
that we're both living.
We tell ourselves that we're not as good as so-and-so.
I think I lost you.
Yep. Sorry. Note the time. Can you hear me? You got me?
You're getting there. Yeah, right, I think you're back.
Okay. I don't know what you said right there before. Dang it.
Oh,
I was on a good
we were talking about weight loss and said that you and I are both living proof that it's hard to keep it off.
Okay, so it's hard to keep it off, but we are told, right, that we need to look like so-and-so. And we aren't told directly, hey, you need to lose weight, fat ass. What we do is we get presented with everyone's highlight reels of everyone, hey, I'm looking good in this bikini, or hey, I'm looking good in this, on the beach or whatever. And then, so again, it's like television, movies, and film. It's like we're being led to live this fake life. Like the show that really bothers me right now is The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, because that's not real life, people. You don't have a single man having 20 women throwing themselves at you with not even your money. It's like it's television studio money getting that limo and this house full of people. It's just not reality. But people are watching it, and people are just dying to to be a part of this thing. And social media helps with it because, like you said, people interact during the debates while people interact during The Bachelor, hashtag The Bachelor, you know, and it's just like, gosh, we're living this fake world, everyone. Why?
Yeah, but then how is group watching The Bachelor different than group watching the debates?
It's not.
Okay.
What I'm saying isn't the group watching isn't the problem. The problem is that social media is helping us keep this fallacy that we all need to be young, skinny, good looking at all times, you know, that if you're fat, you're worthless, and we shame you and things like that. And I think social media helps in the wrong way. It's doing all this.
Right, but I guess the question I keep finding myself asking without an answer is, why is it that user A, who is maybe sharing their weight loss journey or their fitness journey or their self-improvement journey, whether it's fictional, factual, or otherwise, if they're sharing that, especially some of the ones that share for their own personal accountability, so they have a digital digital archive, a trail, because you and I have talked about this with podcasting too, this is really just kind of like for our grandkids more than anything else. I think you actually said that the other day. But why is that person documenting their journey in a digital way that's shared publicly? I mean, if someone else feels shame because of that, how is that social media's fault, I guess?
Very good question. Very good point. So it's like trying to balance yourself on a razor blade. You know,
ouch.
But besides being the ouch, it's very difficult to do. On one hand, if you're the skinny type, you know, then I guess you're going to look at the world as going, oh, those, you know, that isn't a problem, showing your weight loss history. And if you're the opposite time and you've struggled and somebody is showing their new plastic surgery or showing their new, you know, wearing a bikini in all their photos, you're right. That's an internal problem. That's not a problem of the person posting it. But guess what we reward, Bob? We reward the person who's not like you, because that person in the bikini is getting all the likes and you're not. So it's not that person in the bikini is doing it wrong or anything like that. It's the mental health consequence of viewing, and it is internal. It is a personal problem to look at somebody in that bikini and go, oh, well, I'm not as good as them. Therefore, that's why they're getting all their likes and I'm not getting any. It's because I'm fat, and it turns into that feedback loop.
Now, does social media amplify the effects? Because we could look around ourselves in the real world, or maybe that's the problem. We're not looking around ourselves in the actual physical world. But I'm just I want to say this over and over and over again, because a lot of times when I speak and I say the things that I say, I can come off as being very much of an ass. And I know that this is a real thing for very many people. But I'm trying to figure out through this conversation, like, where obviously social media is propelling this, but I don't understand. I'm trying to wrap my head around how and why.
So I'll try to understand it by this analogy. So I just came back from Disney World. When you're at Disney World, you're surrounded by tons of people. The people who are at Disney World, and think of it the same way as people at the airport, you know, where there's lots of people, do not look like a walking Instagram. What they do is they look not like Instagram. So what I'm trying to say is Instagram does not reflect reality, because it's the highlight reel. It's the when I was skinny, but now I'm actually fat. So I haven't posted my real image until I lose another 10 pounds, and then I'll post it again. Here's an updated image. Hi, everyone. You know, hit like, or, you know, share my new story, you know. So what I'm saying is social media enables us to be fake. And I don't think that's a novel concept, but I'm just saying, next time you're at the airport, next time you're at Disney World, look around and go, yeah, we're fat as a society. Yeah, we are. And Instagram does not reflect that at all.
Yeah, but in that same token, though, when you're out in public like that, you could be the Instagram to somebody else. Like, if you're walking through the park with your family and you're smiling and you're laughing and you're having a good time, and then there's some other family that their child's having a meltdown because they haven't been fed properly today, or it's hot and they're sweaty, or they're just not in shape to be in the park for 10 hours, they might look at you and, have that not FOMO, but almost like disdain because it looks like in that moment you are living the perfect life.
So that's a very good point you make. And I think that's really the underlying disdain that we have for each other on social media. It's like, oh, well, this, oh, well, that. I don't really like you, so I will find a reason to not like you. Now, for the record, I had plenty of meltdowns from one of my kids at Disney. So I'm sure I wasn't.
I've lived that too, by the way.
But I take your point, and because we're constantly, even though we say, hey, don't judge people. Well, you know what we do? We do threat assessments. When you're walking around and you see people, you do an immediate threat assessment. Hey, is this person going to hurt me or my children? And the other things we also do is go, is that person, how does that person stack up to me? And I may sound like a horrible person for saying this, but I think everyone kind of looks at a person and just does a quick evaluation. That's
yields, exactly what I'm trying to get to, for sure, is that measurement. Why do have we started measuring ourselves against each other more because of social media, or have we actually always been doing that?
Oh, we've definitely always been doing that. And to your point, I think social media amplifies it because it's hyper filtered. It's like enriching uranium that's gone through the centrifuge. It's now highly enriched. So we have highly enriched Instagram highlight reels where it's just like, wait a second. You didn't look like that last week. When's this picture from? But, I know that because I know you personally. However, to somebody who doesn't know somebody, the last 30 pictures they posted, they look amazing. Well, yeah, that was from 5 years ago. Or, it's all been curated.
Well, I think the always on aspect of it too, because if you're only, let's say that we've always been terrible people and we always have been measuring ourselves against others. There's several hours in the day without electronics and social media where you're just not out in public to measure yourself against everyone. Now, that doesn't say you aren't doing it in the quiet sadness of your room, but at least you're not looking, historically we weren't looking at 24/7, 365 feeds of everyone's highlight reel. And I lost you.
Agreed. And no, so I agree with what you're saying, but there's no buts. I agree with what you're saying. And I think from the minute humanity was put on this earth, we are constantly evaluating ourselves against each other. We either say, yes, I don't want to be like that person. Yes, I want to be like that person. Yes, I'm doing better than that person. No, I'm not doing as great as that person. It's just something I think our psychology does. And that's where it comes back to the balancing on the razor. You're either liking that person or not liking that person, but you can flip-flop between the two, and rarely do you enter this equilibrium. And I know it's PC to say, well, don't judge people, but we totally judge people based on our experience and threat assessments and things like that. We, as humans, I think we actively have to suppress that primal instinct, because I really feel it's a primal instinct to judge yourself for somebody. If you've ever been in a fight, Bob?
Sure.
Okay. So what a fight will tell you is a fight or flight.
Both competitive and not competitive.
There you go. Oh, duh. Martial arts. So, but I'm talking a street fight. Have you ever been in a street fight?
I've been in a non-competitive fight, yes.
Okay, there you go. It's natural to have a fight or flight. And what determines that isn't the factory pattern in C# if you're a programmer. What determines that is a primal instinct to go, I've evaluated the situation, go. But I don't think your evaluation happens only in a fight situation. I think it just happens as part of a natural scanning my environment as I walk, as I'm evaluating my current area, my situation. For better or for worse, we are constantly evaluating threats and statuses. We do it with dating. Hey, that person would be a good mate. No, that person would not be a good mate for me, and here's why. Things like that. I think there's a lot of subliminal things there.
Right. And I'm just saying that I'm in agreeing that social media, because it's ubiquitous and always accessible via our portable devices that we don't get that mental break that we should from the constant evaluating.
So it amplifies. Okay, moving on. So the next thing that social media can do is cause sleep problems. And that's really kind of a snowball effect of the anxiety that you may have gotten, the FOMO that you may have gotten, but it creates sleep problems. Have you ever had sleep problems with social media, Bob?
See, I'm kind of like the anti-pattern to a lot of this conversation. So
I believe you.
But I think some of that, so you've got the cascading from the depression, which is going to cause sleep problems. But then there's also the blue light aspect of the devices too, right?
Yes. Speaking of which, do you ever get phantom vibrations?
I used to a lot more than I do now because since I've been working from home for so long, I don't keep my phone on my person. When I was working out in the real world, my phone was on my person much more. And so, yeah, I would get phantom pocket vibrations.
I still get them, and the phone does not even need to be in my pocket. And it's really
well,
weird.
Yeah, that's usually what happens when they're phantom but I'm just used to not having my device attached to my body.
So the blue light syndrome, I think is what you call it. It's the constant need to have that phone close by and to check. Or when you see the blue light, you gotta address it. What is it, right?
But there's also a physiological effect from the actual light that's emitted from our electronic devices, though. Like they have the filters that you can use to filter out the blue light, or the screen adjustments that take the blue out as the day wears on. So there must be something, not just the psychological aspects of social media, but the actual physical effects from radiating screens.
Yeah, and that's where the sleep is also physiological. You know, it's affecting your actual body in some ways.
But if you're someone who's always refreshing your screen, though, to look at the feed, then if you do leave your notifications on or you don't mute your notifications at night, you're always going to be tempted to pick that up when it vibrates, or, when you see the light flash or whatever.
All right. The next
I don't use any of those notifications, by the way. Do you?
No.
Okay. Because it's just one of those, I guess, like a self-defense mechanism that I discovered a long time ago, is that usually my phone is face down. I don't have any kind of like vibration or anything when something does happen. So I don't know until I actually pick up my device.
I definitely used to have those, but part of the mitigation I stuck a pin in. We'll talk a little bit about some of those strategies. So kind of a trivial, or if you will, trite, negative side effect is the concept of fake internet friends, basically only being friends with people you've actually never physically met, and being upset, even if you have met them or not, when they unfriend you or unfollow you. Ever manifested that sort of thing? I definitely have, where it's like I get upset about somebody who doesn't follow my social media anymore, or we're no longer, you're on Facebook back in the day. Wait a second. Why isn't Timmy showing up in my feeds anymore? He unfriended me, right?
So once again, I'm probably an anti-pattern here, because I very rarely look at who is following me versus I don't look at my friends list on Facebook. I should monitor and audit it more, truthfully, but I don't. I just, once again, I think I look at these things as more of tools than whatever the alternative would be. Like, I'm not connected to them as much.
So who you follow, not necessarily who follows you, but who you follow will define what shows up in your feed. And what I've seen
yes
recently,
and no.
Yes-ish, right?
Yeah, because the algorithm will totally hose that up.
Yeah, because I've unfollowed a lot of people, and their stuff still shows up in my timeline because somebody I follow hit like or retweet on their timeline. And if you really want them to be off there, you got to mute them, which is... yeah, that's a thing.
It's an expensive click is what it is. I mean, it's a high cost interaction.
So, I lost my thread here. Okay, anyway, moving along here. Another negative side effect is self-absorption, meaning likes, retweets, and followers turn you into an asshole because it builds you up to the point where you believe your own hype, to the point where you're just an asshole. I call it the Trump effect, but that's just me.
Yeah, I would say of anything that we've mentioned so far, FOMO and this one are probably the ones that but given the fact that none of my shit's actually very popular, it doesn't happen very often.
I definitely do. I'm guilty of tweet storms just because when I have I feel like I'm the comedian who's just not funny, and in social media is just like the worst place for comedy, at least if you're me, because most people just think you're like doing some asshole thing. I'm like, no, don't you see the irony? I've juxtaposed these two things here. And Kevin, if you have to explain it, it's not funny. So.
I think we know a fellow comic that would agree with you wholeheartedly that social media is hard for comedians.
Yeah, it is. Comments on YouTube. So I mentioned I'm back doing some light YouTube, and I read some they'll hold some comments in review for you, and I made the mistake of reading through those. Holy shit.
A brilliant man once said, "Never read the comments."
But as I made
Joe Rogan,
as I made mention to you when we did talk about this offline, the irony is what do we do, Bob? What are we going to do in this episode?
Yeah, we're going to tell people to tweet at us and all that shit. And yes, we're trying to engage with our listeners, but YouTube comments are the worst.
YouTube comments are the absolute worst. And I don't know what makes them the absolute worst, but maybe it's I don't know.
But let me ask you this serious question though, because so someone puts an awful YouTube comment on something that you've created. Yes, you've put your heart and soul and your time and energy into it. But you don't know that person. Like, why would their trollish behavior have a negative impact on your psyche?
It's totally subjective to the receiver, meaning the person who just received that asshole comment. So I have on occasion gotten upset, and then I have to talk myself off the ledge, if you will, to go, you know what? Bob's right. I don't know this person. This person is nobody. And because the asshole is it's always been somebody you don't know. So you're 100% right. The fear I have is I have children, two of which that are on social media at this point. One is a teenager, which he can handle himself pretty good. The other one is almost a teenager, and he's the one that's going to just absolutely not understand at all that without dad.
Well, yeah, that's a huge parenting opportunity for sure. I would love to find out from your oldest, like, how much shit he gets on social media.
Yeah.
Because he really puts himself out there. So, I mean.
And he does every now and then, but I think he does the right thing, which is see social media for what it is, like you're saying.
Yeah.
If it's somebody you know, then there's malice. If there's somebody you don't know, there's just an asshole. And
if there's one thing that's 100% sure, haters are always going to hate.
Haters gonna hate. Okay. So I think this is my last thing about the negatives is I have two more negatives here. So your local news, Bob, are they doing a whole lot of pieces on great things that happened?
I'm sorry, did you just say the term local news? Does that even exist?
Yes, it does.
I'm sure that in the last closing 45 seconds of a 6 o'clock broadcast, there's the allegedly upbeat oddity for the day.
The token good news article?
Yeah.
Story. So
Joey down the block, his dog had 17 puppies yesterday. Aren't they just adorable? Roll the credits.
Right. We're gonna go with a cold out or whatever it's called. So the news thrives on bad news, not good news. If it bleeds, it leads, right? So I think social media embodies that as well, because I think the algorithms reward extremism. The more extreme you are, the more interaction you get.
100%. Social media algorithms favor outrage.
So outrage, we never had the phrase outrage culture before social media, did we?
Probably not.
We've got a lot of terms. Cancel culture, outrage culture. What other fun terms do we have like that?
Virtue signaling.
Yep.
Although that's probably always been there.
Subtweeting. That's the other one.
I don't even understand subtweeting.
All right, I'm going to cover that in a minute here. All right, the next negative here is people can weaponize social media depending on how they phrase the question, how they phrase the poll. Now, this is not new in polling. Depending on how you ask a question, what answers you like, if it's a multiple choice, you can absolutely force people to give you the outcome they want. So much like that, depending on how you phrase your tweet, you can actually make it easy for people to like and retweet. But if you're like, no, I don't believe that. There's no dislike button. You have to hit reply. And now on Twitter, those can get hidden. So it's like,
the dislike button would be a total disaster, though. Like, that would be the worst cyberbullying ever.
But YouTube has it.
Thumbs down. Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's the only one, right?
YouTube's a cesspool.
Yes, it is. So, but I feel like you can leverage the idea that you can only be positive or no interaction to your favor by forming your tweet that if you get low interaction or a lot of likes, you can move your thought along, as opposed to people who want to contradict you really don't have any tools to do so.
Right. When you said weaponize, though, I thought you were going to use the example of someone who has a lot of followers and then tells or encourages the followers to go
Twitter, do your thing.
Yep, do your thing. Exactly.
God, I hate those tweets. Okay. So I'm going to move into specifically on Twitter, and we can see if this applies to the other platforms. And I realize this is going to be a longer episode than Bob is comfortable with, but I digress. So I made a list of the different types of way people can use social media with alternate intentions, if you will. Meaning,
I'm intrigued.
Meaning, if I were to write a straw man tweet, Bob, do you understand what I'm getting at?
No.
Okay, so a straw man
I'm a simple man.
An argument that is a straw man argument is easily defeated by the person asking the question. Meaning,
well, that's every argument that's ever posted on Twitter.
It's not, but here's an example. So, if I have to listen to one more person say, I can't do X, Y, Z, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And then they get a bunch of likes and retweets. But if you sit there and ask yourself, well, how can you contradict that argument? You can't. And also, you can't actually prove that the situation actually occurred, that somebody wronged you. So it's a very common tweet type that you can basically just create a crisis that didn't exist, easily defeat it, and come out looking like you were virtuous.
Yeah, but I would also argue that that's existed since the beginning of time in social, gossip circles too.
It is, but now we've amplified. We've now made this possible to do on a scale,
on a global scale.
Exactly. Now the next one is a humble brag. Bob, are you familiar with the humble brag?
Oh yeah,
I saw one today, and I don't follow her anymore, but somebody liked it, and it showed up in my timeline. I'm about to speak before 3,000 people today. I don't know, if that's a good thing or not. And it's just like, wait a second.
So the humble part comes in with the end statement, right? Because
yes.
Why wouldn't you just say, "Hey, good for me. I just got accepted.
Excited.
Yeah, I got accepted to speak at a large conference. Woohoo!"
So to pull off a humble brag, you have to basically make it sound like you're humble, but what you got to do is you got to insert something that makes you sound like you're doing well. Like, hey, I'm speaking in front of 3,000 people. That's really my message. The message is I want everyone to know how amazing of things that I'm doing, but we'll back it off and we'll wrap it in being humble by saying, I don't know if I can do this. The slides are hard or whatnot. So
yeah, that's probably how I know that I'm an ass, because I would never I'm pretty good at self-deprecation. Don't get me wrong. But when something good happens to me, I'm like, fuck yeah, I earned that.
So that is the humble brag. Now the next one is the sycophant. Are you familiar with the term sycophant?
It's usually negative.
Well, it's a pejorative, so it's not meant to be a compliment to somebody if you call it a sycophant.
Right. I don't have the definition handy, so help me out. Help a brother out.
It's essentially drinking the Kool-Aid. So-and-so says puppies are evil, therefore I killed one. Here's the video, and everyone likes it because they just want the adulation of the person who made the original post. So it's basically going to a more famous person, and I'm trying to keep this PC.
So being a sheep because some wolf said that that's what you should do, and now
And you're hoping to gain their love and affection by agreeing with everything they do. So that's what the sycophant is, basically providing no, and we see this a lot with Trump, right? Where the dude is doing XYZ and then the Republicans go, yep, he's an amazing man.
He's our guy.
Like, wait, what are you talking about? He just murdered somebody on Fifth Avenue. I know, but he did it so great, didn't he? Oh my gosh, nobody doesn't like that guy.
He didn't get caught.
Yeah. So there's the sycophant. There's the question, and so the previous three annoy the shit out of me: the straw man, the humble brag, and the sycophant. The question one is generally a neutral. It's basically like, hey, I have this poll, answer it. However, you can turn it into a negative by simply adjusting what it is your answers are. Now, the one I saw that was kind of funny today, and it was a poll. I had two questions. Should you unit test? The first answer was yes. The second answer was see results. You couldn't say no.
Right. I've seen that technique. I think that's more humor than anything else.
Yeah.
But it's also a subtle way to say that my belief is correct, that you should always unit test. And if you think differently, go F yourself.
So now you're starting to see the pattern here when you can kind of categorize tweets when they say one thing, but they totally mean another. And as a society, I asked the other day, are we smart enough to know what the true intentions of these tweets are? And I really don't think we are. I really don't. And I'm just as susceptible. I'm not like, well, yeah, I can spot these coming a mile away. Not all the time, can I? But I really don't think the layperson, especially on like a Facebook or whatnot, I don't think they understand what is actually the psychology of these messaging in 240 characters.
Well, someone's always going to lead and someone's always going to follow. And I don't necessarily so if someone is, the question one, especially, who cares again? If I'm going to engage with that, then for my entertainment value or because I feel like I'm contributing to some greater conversation, I don't, if the person tweeting it, their original intention was just to be a total jag, that's neither hither nor thither, I guess.
Well, what I'm trying to paint an overall picture here in this podcast is we live in a fake world where nothing is what it seems, and social media is that vehicle. And it's actually very taxing on the mind to be able to sort through all of these things, to be able to push off these primal feelings of why do I feel like I'm missing out? I shouldn't. Why do I feel like I don't like that person? They're clearly having fun. The problem is with me. Why do I have this problem? And you'll see those tweets often. You shouldn't hate so-and-so because they're having fun. And in of itself, that message is correct, but it's also virtue signaling, which is next on my list. Bob, what is the virtue signal?
Virtue signaling is basically when you put something out there in whether you do it or not, which the hypocrisy part is when you're not doing it, but you're really just putting it out there so people believe that you are, whether it's true or not.
It's basically, I made a statement against somebody else to show that I'm more virtuous than some other group that may or may not actually exist.
And you could actually, it could just be like, all of us should volunteer at least 5 hours a week at the dog shelter. But that person doesn't volunteer.
Probably doesn't do any volunteering whatsoever.
That's a virtue signal.
All right. So there's that one. There's also the TIL and the TFW. Are you familiar with those two acronyms on Twitter?
Nope.
Today I learned and that feeling when. And those are usually pretty benign.
Till I learned? What was
today? Or TIL is today I learned.
Today I learned. Oh, like I was this many days old. I was today's days old when, yeah.
Oh, well, today I learned is like, hey, instead of typing out today I learned that I could do this in Visual Studio, I'll just put TIL. So that's just an acronym to shorten those because we got 240 characters. So real estate, right? And then the next one is TFW, which is that feeling when. It's usually got an emoji or a meme after it. And both of those are typically pretty benign. You don't get people twisting those, but there's those.
Well, but that could be like, people making that post to try to build themselves up, but then in reality, it actually helps to tear someone else down. That feeling when something super awesome happens to me, too bad it didn't happen to you kind of thing.
Right. Yep. And that could be one of those virtue signals or humble brags. So like today, that feeling when you get to drive that new Tesla Roadster. It's like,
right.
Yeah, I guess you're better than all of us. Thanks. Because you're, yeah. I mean, even though that person's just like, hey, I'm just happy I'm driving a Tesla Roadster. You know, I tweeted that I was at the SpaceX thing, you know, so somebody's probably like, oh, Kevin thinks he's cool, right? Because he's at Kennedy Space Center right now. Or whatever. I'm like, no, this is just cool. So it's all about perspective.
Right. That's where it gets totally dicey. And that, once again, I think that, you know, not to sound like an asshole, but that's where it's a you problem, not a we problem.
Well, most of all this is you problems because, you know, there's groupthink, and I didn't really put that on my list. Groupthink where it's more like the sycophants.
Well,
but
yeah, that's
anyway.
more like the Twitter do your thing.
The next one I'm 1,000% guilty of. It's the cynic tweet. You know, I'm like the biggest cynic on Twitter. That's like my shtick. You know, I try to make them humorous, but they usually just come off as being, yeah, Kevin, you just hate everything. You probably hate peanut butter and jelly too, Kevin. We get it. You know, so whatever. I actually like PB&J.
Just for the record.
All right. So there's the cynic. There's the praise. So this one seems fairly benign. So it's, hey, good job, whatever. But I had an interaction with someone and I said it in the tweet thread. I'm like, wait a second, you just weaponize kindness, because it's like, I would like to thank X, Y, and Z, knowing full well that they didn't thank A, B, and C, who were on the other side of this argument. So it's like, wait a second.
Well, but that could also be a virtue signal. That could also be a sycophant. That could be, I mean, that crosses all kinds of different ones.
Exactly. So there's that. So to go with the cynic one, there's the optimist and pessimistic tweet. There's definitely people who are the eternal optimists in their tweeting, and there are people, the eternal pessimists in their tweeting. And then there's the people who try to be pragmatic in their tweets. And again, I don't want to sound like I don't do any of these. I'm not virtue signaling on this podcast. I have done every single one of these, just to be clear. So
I'm sure I've unintentionally done many of them too, but I will virtue signal here to say that I'm the guy who I could live happily on a fake movie set until I needed to take a shit. You know what I mean?
What does that even mean? I have no idea what that means.
That means that I can happily live with all these terrible things on social media until I need something from it that it can't give me. Like, there's no real plumbing on a fake movie set, but my gosh, it looks so great. It's so perfect. It's everything you'd ever want until you have to use the bathroom.
I guess the thing that grinds my gears is social media is very disingenuous. You look at the feeds of people's Instagram, that's their best foot forward. You only see the front lot, not the back lot if it's a movie. You're not seeing that's just a facade of a building, not the actual building behind it.
Right, but I don't know if we're going to get to the mitigation and the coping mechanisms, but if you go into your social media interactions with that frame of mind, wouldn't that help mitigate all those other negatives?
If you're aware of them. So part of this podcast and my next tweet type is awareness. You have to be aware.
There's more tweet types? Jesus.
There's more. I'm trying to wrap this up. So you have the here's my cause, here's my awareness, here's my Patreon, here's my, we're walking laps for cancer. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So those are generally pretty safe. But I would also like this podcast to make people be aware that tweets are not, or in social media in general, are not what they claim to be at face value. And I would love everyone to kind of look at it that way and go, look, this is not reality. This is fake. You need to understand this is fake, because if you're like a small child, like my younger kids, they have no idea what I just said. And I have to be able to hold their hand and go, look, somebody really doesn't hate you because they hit the down arrow on your YouTube video. Don't take it that way. You're not a bad videographer because you have 25 subscribers and I have 26. Don't take it that way. Now, I think there are adults, though.
Or you could parent like I do and say, or you could be a bad videographer, but who cares?
Well, there's that, too. Usually how I say that is, hey, you know what? We've all got our own style. So that's usually how I say it. But I think there's a lot of people who grew up at, who are 20 somethings who do take social media super serious and don't understand that there's a psychology behind every crafted social media thing, whether it's just an image on Instagram, whether it's a video on Facebook or on YouTube, whether it's a stupid post on Facebook and whatever. So the reason I made this list is because I had this realization not that long ago. You know what? There's actually different types of tweets, and there's different reasons for why they worded them, and let's talk through them. So when you see one, you can go, "Oh, that's a humble brag." Whatever. That's a humble brag. They just want you to know they have 3,000 people in front of them, and that's fine. But just understand that you don't have to equal that somehow in your mind. You're not a bad person because of that.
Right. So you're approaching this from the aspect that if you can identify these things, that is step one to be able to manage your reaction to them.
In order to have a vaccination, if you will, against the negative harm or negative effects of social media. If you're aware of how it works on that level, you're more easier to slough it off, as opposed to if you don't understand these things, you're going to take it as a full direct shot to the mental health.
Right. So if I make this statement, I want you to just kind of either validate it or debate it. So we keep saying that social media has all this negative, but isn't it kind of like the sun in and of itself is not necessarily negative? It provides vitamin D, helps the plants grow, yada, yada, yada. But if you take and put a magnifying glass between you and the sun, it can create all kinds of damage.
Yes.
So people in this metaphor, people are the bad things.
Yes.
And social media is just the magnifying glass that makes it all sting so much more.
So I'm going to call out the brothers Weems, Kyle and Conrad. They're going to be like, God dang it. I'm going to bring up a Star Trek reference. Star Trek The Next Generation, the entire 7 seasons are about how it's not about spaceships. I know it's about spaceships. It's not about spaceships because it's about how humanity sucks ass.
Sorry, Kyle and Conrad, your show is based on a false premise. It's not about spaceships.
I would argue that Star Trek Next Generation is about how humans suck in so many ways, and they tell you in 45-minute increments. They tell you over 7 seasons about how humanity is bad, and the show itself is the vehicle to communicate this. Where social media isn't inherently bad, like you're saying, humans are what's bad. Social media is what puts it into your freaking veins. It's the delivery mechanism, and it's potent as shit, right? That is intravenous. It's not just, hey, I've got to buy a box of social media and eat it when I want. No, this shit's connected right to your veins, and it goes right in because we're all addicted to it.
So knowing everything that we've outlined, how do we better equip our younger folks and even folks our age to better manage their experience around social media?
It's a good thing I have this little section called mitigation, Pop, and that was a beautiful segue here because you're probably like, God dang, this is like over an hour already. So many people need to detox off social media, and I'm going to run through my list that I put together. So one thing that I started doing is I figured out that I started doing a lot of social media at night. So I'll sit there and watch TV, but I'm not really watching TV. I'm scrolling through my phone. So fortunately, my phone's old and shitty and the battery doesn't last very long. So what I started doing is I put the phone on a charger in a different room at night, right before I'm probably going to pass out watching some Netflix show. So that's one way. I separate myself physically from social media. Do you ever do similar things?
All the time.
And would you say it's effective?
Oh, yeah. But I'm like the typical, like, I can quit anytime I want addict. So
I can quit. I don't have a problem. That's everybody else.
That's right. I can quit anytime I want.
So the next thing that I've done is I've removed the app icon from my phone desktop. Now, you can do that on Android. I don't know that you can do that on iPhone.
You can.
Okay. So you don't have to have, because I'm thinking of my iPad where if you want the icon off the desktop, you're uninstalling it.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's really not an expensive click to reinstall it. I mean, my wife manages her social media exactly that way. She will uninstall apps.
Well, so if I really get like, okay, I need to detox, I will uninstall it. But there's kind of a halfway house there on Android. You can just hide the icon, and then you have to go through the searching of the apps to actually pull it up. So that's the current drug I'm on right now, is where I actually have to go find the app. So if you remove the app totally, that's more helpful because now you have to go find a freaking browser, and then you also don't get notifications by default, right?
Well, yeah, if it's uninstalled, it's off.
So that's another good way. And then we already mentioned this, disabling notifications altogether is good because the blue light syndrome.
Yeah,
is that a real thing?
Well, the notification syndrome, that's the whole dopamine thing. The blue thing that I was referring to was the negative impact of blue light on your sleep, like the actual light. The light.
I thought you meant the blue flashy light, like I got a notification.
No. I meant the blue light that screens give us.
Oh man.
But
okay,
but yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just, I think the biggest fix is just not having the first thing you mentioned. Just don't have your device near you when you want alone, quiet time.
Well, and to be honest, I've been yelled at quite often by my wife. Kevin, put the phone down. It's dinner time. And, I feel bad when she has to say something. So that's a problem.
There's an ongoing discussion in our family that the perception is that I'm always connected. That's the perception. But the reality is there are many times where I'm the only one that's not on my device. So so it's weird. I mean, like I said earlier, I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm challenged by a lot of these challenges, but I totally appreciate and understand that they're real. But, once again, right. I could just be a high functioning addict too. So
the next thing is Apple natively will let you track how much you use an app, right?
Yeah, that thing's bullshit too, though.
And I downloaded one for Android because I have an older version. Maybe it's native to Android now. I started using that and I uninstalled it. It's just not feasible. It's just not. It's like putting the alcohol behind a glass door with no lock. Well, I can just disable this app. It's like, I can just sidestep this.
Well, and a lot of times what it does is, like the Apple one, yes, it will track individual apps, but the big number that it gives you is how many minutes your screen was activated. And 100% honesty, I find myself looking at my weather app way more than I look at all the other apps that I have. So that still counts as negative screen time, So.
I don't know what the phenomena is, but every now and then, actually not every now, regularly, I'll need to open a browser and go to my go-to site. Hey, is there anything on my go-to site that's changed? And oftentimes that's like a CNN or the local news. I mean, they're all right in my browser history and they're readily accessible. Do you ever do that?
Nah. I mean, I don't really use the browser on my phone that much at all. So.
Wow. Okay, that's fair.
Well, no,
right.
But I go direct to the apps. I mean, trust me, it's just as bad. I just don't. The browser's not one of my tools on my phone. It really isn't.
So, last one I got here is do real world things. Meaning, I play guitar on Sundays.
Amen.
And I do woodworking when I not playing guitar on Sundays. So, those are, it's like really weird. Do stuff in the real world.
But I think that that's a huge challenge for our young people for sure, because they might feel like they're busy all the time, but in reality, they do have tons of idle time.
So that is my mitigations. I did miss 2 tweet types that I want to cover real quick. Humor. That's humor. And then I forgot to cover subtweeting.
Damn you and your tweet types.
I know, right? Subtweeting, for the lay listener, means subliminal tweeting. I didn't know that until not that long ago. And what subtweeting is basically what I used to call vague tweets. And a vague tweet to me was you mention something, but you don't mention their name. And it's almost worse than directly mentioning someone, because a vague tweet means everyone internalizes your tweet as being, oh, does he mean me?
You're so vain.
I bet you think
this tweet is about you.
Don't you?
You could buy our album.
Yes.
Download it on SoundCloud.
All right, Bob. That's probably a record.
Subtweeting is the worst type of tweeting ever. It happens on all social media platforms too. And it's just like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, it is. I almost feel it's better to name names than to not name names, because at least the person who's going to get pissed off is one person as opposed to everyone.
It's super annoying and super cowardly. It's just basically like digitally talking under your breath. It's like, yeah, you're a total asshole. What'd you say?
Who's a total asshole? Me? Oh, well, what'd I do, man? No, it wasn't you. And then
I just subtweeted IRL in real life.
Acronym hell. All right, Bob, what did we forget?
We forgot to solve the problem, but I think we did give some, hopefully we gave some, I don't know, they're not really thoughtful. They're kind of like, duh. But a lot of times when we're in the fight, we forget about those easy kind of escape routes. So hopefully just the discussion of being able how to identify some of this stuff, giving it a name, recommending some thoughts on how you can mitigate. Maybe we actually did do something with this episode. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. Only time will tell. So for me, yeah, it's all about recognizing we live in a fake world like we've always lived in as kids, with movies, television, and music, where that's not reality. But now it's much more accessible, this fake reality. And people have figured out very good psychological ways through these different social media types to kind of spark engagement, for lack of a better term. But it's also, again, it's probably not the message that you think it is. It's these like subliminal messaging. And yeah, go do real world things. It's actually weird that we have to tell people that these days.
So if you made it to the end of this epic length episode, please, send us a virtue signal or any of the other tweet types and say that you made it to the end. I want it to be in the tweet. We made it to the end. Anything else?
Or doesn't count. You can always try to hit us up for a sticker. I've got a huge pile sitting in front of me because our engagement, even though we want it, we don't get it. And even if we do get it, maybe we won't read it. No, we will. We will totally read it.
Just don't email us, because I can't remember the last time I checked the email.
Yeah, don't email us. Direct message us on the Twitters, right?
Yeah. And I have a special surprise coming soon, too. I'll share it when I get it.
Well, that's a tease.
It is a tease.
I don't even know what it is.
I know you don't. All right, y'all.
What kind of tweet type was that? Anyway.
That was a tease tweet. Till next time, we out.
Hey, have you ever wondered how you can get in touch with us at the Bob and Kevin Show?
Well, first, you can try us via email at comments@bobandkevinshow.com.
Or are you more into social? If so, you can find us on Twitter at Bob and Kevin Show.
Or on Instagram as Bob Kevin Show.
That's Bob, the letter N, Kevin Show.
And if you're still on Facebook, you can even find us at facebook.com/Bob and Kevin Show.
And for the serious business fans, you can even find us on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/company/the-Bob-Kevin-Show.
How's that for a handle? Let's connect.